Republican State Representative Mitch Little of Lewisville. Thank you so much and welcome to Ion Politics.
Thank you, Jack. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. So first, let me get your reaction to Travis County Judge Catherine Mauzie's judgment against the Texas Attorney General's office for nearly $6.7 million.
Yeah, I think it's much ado about nothing. Obviously, the people of Texas have had an opportunity to hear all the details related to that case during the impeachment trial in which Attorney General Ken Paxton was acquitted. There was a balance of the civil judgment that needed to be addressed. The Attorney General's office pretty clearly decided it was not worth their time or the people of Texas's money to defend the case in court. And now the whistleblowers have a piece of paper that's a judgment, and I imagine they'll be seeking or beseeching the legislature to pay that judgment on their behalf.
Do you think the legislature should pay for this judgment?
Not a chance in heck, Jack. I mean, if you look at what's going on all over the state of Texas, we're in the middle of a property tax crisis. There's an affordability crisis that's going on. The average person is trying to stay in their home. They're trying to be able to afford their daily life. We're trying to ensure that our public schools are well enough financed where we, we have a water crisis in this state that we're trying to address through legislation as well. Paying these people who decided to leave the Attorney General's office and felt like they were retaliated against is not in the top 100 priorities of the people of the state of Texas right now.
And so let's go back because what the judge said in her judgment was that the Texas Attorney General's office violated the Texas Whistleblower Act by firing and otherwise retaliating against the plaintiffs in good faith who reported violations of law by the Attorney General and the office. And so I'm wondering, I mean, she found that this was a simple case of violating the Whistleblowers Act. They reported something in good faith. The AG's office fired them.
She
So
made those findings. Yeah, the judge made those findings in that case because the attorney general decided not to defend the case, which was a strategic decision. Ultimately, like I said, the whistleblowers are going to end up with a piece of paper, and they've got to ask 150 members in the Texas House to vote to either to fund that judgment. And I'll point out something else, Jack. So the state of Texas spent $5 million on the impeachment, at least. We know that already. The amount of this judgment is $6.7 million, something like that, including $250,000 per plaintiff in emotional pain and suffering. Whereas there was originally a settlement for $3 million, and the legislature didn't want to fund that. So if you just compare those apples to apples, there was a $3 million settlement that had been proposed. The legislature said, not only do we not want to pay it, we want to impeach you for $5 million. And now we're $11 million into this thing, supposedly, if this judgment were to be paid. It just doesn't make sense for the people of Texas to have to pay this out of their own tax dollars.
and as far as just going back and looking at, I know you brought up the impeachment case, and certainly that came out of this whistleblower case. But this whistleblower case is separate from the impeachment. The impeachment was a political process. This is a legal process, no?
Certainly, it's on the same facts though, and so the trial that happened in the Senate vis-a-vis Ken Paxton, obviously everybody got to hear the nature of the whistleblower case. It came into a civil court. At some point, the Office of the Attorney General says we have spent too much time, too much money trying to defend this case. Ultimately, the legislature is going to have to decide whether to pay it anyway. So let's just not defend it. There's no point in doing so. And at the end of the day, I think the whistleblowers got a little bit greedy. They could have settled this case a long time ago, but they wanted a pound of flesh, and now they've got a piece of paper instead.
And so, I mean, I guess this would still perhaps go before the House, and the House will make a determination. I know you oppose it. What have other members said to you about this?
Well, I don't think I'm capable of speaking on behalf of other members, but the other complicating dynamic, Jack, is that the the judgment was entered on April 4th. We have budget night this Thursday, April 10th. The judgment isn't even final yet. The court still retains plenary power over that judgment for another 30 days before it even becomes final. And the Office of the Attorney General could certainly still appeal that judgment on the basis of the sufficiency of the evidence.
And
So they're just not done yet.
Yeah, and I know that the Attorney General's office put out a statement late Friday night saying that they are going to appeal. They said, quote, "We will appeal this bogus ruling as we continue to clean up Dave Phelan's mess." They're referring to the former speaker who oversaw the investigation and trial of impeachment against the Attorney General. So what did you make, going back to what you said before, with regards to this at least $5 million spent on the impeachment when the state could have settled for $3.3 million? The Attorney General's office had agreed to that.
Yeah, Jack, this is government in action, no question about it. I have a little bit of a different perspective now that I'm in the House versus representing Ken Paxton in the Senate impeachment trial. Now that I'm kind of on the other side of the government curtain, all of this makes perfect sense. The original investigation that ended up costing the taxpayers $5 million was shoddy. It was haphazard. It was rushed. And then the members of the Texas House at that time, many of whom are no longer with us, they're home playing with their grandkids, decided to vote to impeach the most popular attorney general in the country. Obviously, that was a huge error in judgment. We have a chance now to just simply move forward with the actual problems of the people of Texas rather than dealing with this any longer. This is a silly chapter, dark time. We need to move past it.
Last question on this topic, and that is the one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs said that they thought the Attorney General admitted to breaking the law because he didn't dispute the facts of the case, and that he did it because he had no defense and he didn't want to be questioned under oath. Your
Yeah.
reaction to that?
Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think what's clear is the people of Texas don't want to waste any more of their taxpayer dollars on this problem. The plaintiffs' lawyers, if they wanted to make the money that they had envisioned when they started this case, they should have taken the settlement a couple years ago.
And let me ask you, well, I mean, wasn't that if they took the settlement, the legislature decided not to fund it. They were all set to do it, but the legislature decided not to fund it.
Yeah,
So,
they might have been out on both counts. I think if the legislature, I think if House leadership had said, you know what, this is a pretty typical problem for state litigation, let's fund this settlement, we never would have had to spend another $5 million on the impeachment. So it's a case of, as you see in government, a lot of times, penny wise, pound foolish.
so let's talk about the session, because we're more than halfway through. And what bills are on your top priority list to get passed?
Well, I don't so much have a personal priority list as I am working every day to ensure that the legislative priorities of the Republican Party are advanced. One of the main things that has been on my heart lately, I think the heart of a lot of voters, is the property tax crisis that we're in the middle of. There's, from what I understand, a proposed $10 billion in property tax relief from the governor. I would certainly like that to be more. I think most Texans would. We are in the middle of an affordability crisis that needs to be addressed. Obviously, we have some larger concerns, or similarly large concerns, about securing our electric grid, preventing the sexualization of Texas school children, ensuring our Second Amendment rights always. We have a number of legislative priorities that we're very focused on. Ending federal overreach is a pretty significant one, too. Jack, I think you're going to see, just on a personal level, there are a couple of bills that I'm trying to address here this week related to the ending the practice of non-disclosure agreements in cases involving sexual abuse. And then I've got a bill that's being heard this week in judiciary and civil jurisprudence related to sovereign immunity for school systems and school personnel in situations that involve sexual abuse. We're in the middle of a crisis there in Texas, too. I think there were 3 employees of Huntsville ISD that were arrested within the last several weeks for sexually inappropriate conduct with students. We have to, as a state, address this in a way that we have not yet.
And how would you propose doing so?
We need to remove sovereign immunity for employees in school districts who hire people who sexually abuse children.
Which means
One,
sovereign immunity, I'm sorry to interrupt, but sovereign immunity, you're talking about making it so that the school district has to pay.
yes, absolutely. And there are good reasons that sovereign immunity exists in the state of Texas for various state agencies. We don't want school districts or their employees being sued for slip and falls. Sexual abuse is not a slip and fall. And one of the problems that we have in this state is um, teachers, administrators, personnel that work at school districts are oftentimes moving from school district to school district and engaging in abuse without any consequences. We have to find a way to filter this out as a state.
And I know that was already part of a law passed in 2023, I believe. The pass the trash, I think it was called, but taking sovereign immunity, that takes it a step further, right?
It does take it a step further, and it doesn't seem like we've quite solved the problem yet with our current legislation. Another significant priority that I'm sure you're tracking, and I'm certainly tracking, is the availability of Texas land to foreign entities. For example, China seems to be the major focus. Representative Hefner, or Chairman Hefner, has moved a bill through his committee dealing with the acquisition of Texas land by the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign other foreign countries. There are a number of bills that are kind of competing, but I think that's the one that has the best chance of moving in the House right now. And certainly, I'm going to engage in every effort to make that as strong as we possibly can.
And that's House Bill 17 you're referring to?
I believe it is 17.
And so let me ask you about that. So why is that so important? What is your message, and what do you say to those who oppose it? And I think I've heard in some cases, it's discriminatory.
Certainly. This is a security threat not only to the state of Texas, but to the United States. I think you're seeing a movement afoot on a national level for President Trump to try to prevent uh, foreign actors from acquiring real estate in the United States. In Texas, it's been a problem. I'm sure you're aware that an affiliate of the Chinese Communist Party attempted to and actually did acquire around 30,000 acres in South Texas adjacent to United States Air Force Base. This is happening on large scale and on a smaller scale too. The purpose of the law is not to discriminate against Chinese-born U.S. citizens or to prevent anyone from, buying a condo when they're here in the country properly. The the purpose of the bill is to protect the strategic interests of the state of Texas from foreign influence. And our enemies, or the enemies of the United States, are constantly engaged in foreign influence operations, including the acquisition of real estate. We have to be very careful about that. And we need to make sure that they're not gaining a foothold here in Texas. I personally wrote a bill on this topic that was modeled after the bill that's already been passed in the state of Arkansas and signed into law. It's the subject of a federal injunction that I'm sure will be lifted shortly under the Trump administration if it hasn't already. So I think this is a national priority. It's a priority of other states, and it should be a priority of the state of Texas as well.
And it's not just military concerns, I would imagine that you have. It's also agricultural.
Yes, I mean it is agricultural, but every economic concern in ways, Jack, is a security concern. So all warfare is based on deception, and so not only do we have physical security concerns in the United States, but our economic security as well as a country and as a state, and certainly the use of our agricultural land and the ability. If you look at that piece of property that was acquired in South Texas, it was designed to be a wind farm that would connect to our electric grid. Obviously, there are concerns about the Chinese Communist Party having access to that as well.
And so did that sale go through?
My understanding is it is FinCEN either. My understanding is it actually did go through, but FinCEN blocked it. It's not a current threat to Texas or the United States. The federal government from time to time does address these things, but we as a state need to be examining them too.
And my last question to you, and I appreciate your time, is just going back to the property tax issue. You brought up the governor's $10 billion, which he said during his State of the State address. And have the House and Senate bills even met that amount in the property tax relief that's been passed so far?
So not that's been passed so far, but my understanding is that the House and Senate's bills are going to integrate toward that amount. So if you look at Representative Morgan Meyer's bill on raising the business personal property exemption, if you look at the House's rate compression tool, that's also championed by Representative Meyer, and you combine that with elevation of the homestead exemption that's moving through the Senate, if you integrate all those things, I think we'll eventually get to $10 billion in relief. The problem philosophically, Jack, is that enough? We have a $24 billion surplus, and I think our approach needs to be first, how do we get this money back into the hands of Texans so that their lives can become more affordable? They can become more secure in their homestead and in their business.
mean,
These are things that are important to look at. You know, one of the things that we need to look at also is, have we gone far enough on business personal property tax exemption? I'd like to look at the franchise tax as well. If you look at what's going on in other states, state of Louisiana just got rid of their franchise tax. I think Mississippi just got rid of their income tax. Praise God, we don't have one in the state of Texas, but we need to find ways, if we want to encourage economic growth in Texas, we need to find ways to make this a even more business friendly environment from a tax standpoint than we already have.
State Representative Mitch Little of Louisville, thank you so much. We
It's been a
appreciate it.
great joy. Thank you so much, Jack.